Should we do this? All right. Hey there, backyardigans. I see you. Yeah. It is Jeremy and Liam this time for the Backyard Bourbon broadcast. Liam decided to join me for this one. This is episode 13, and he wanted to join me, so he's kind of sleeping and snoring and grunting and sounding like a pig. So, what are we going to talk about today? Today we're going to try and do what story is this today? Oh yes, this is Hell, Hot Dogs, and Hand Grenades. So, let me find that story. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about, also this Maker's Mark that we're enjoying, that I'm enjoying. Liam's not having any. He's trying to cut back. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. This is episode 13. Okay, let's see. Some notes, some thoughts on this Maker's Mark. You know, it's funny. You can kind of taste, like, spices. I don't know what it is. It's different from Knob Creek, and it's different from Bullet. I'm enjoying it. It's just different, and I'm comparing it to Jim Beam Black and bourbon from Knob Creek, and it's good. It's good. What am I complaining about? I'm not complaining about anything, really. Seriously, it's great. It's great bourbon. I was just not used to or ready for the spice taste, I guess you could say. Spice? Is that even the right? I don't even know. That noise you can hear in the background is Liam. He's trying to chew his bone. And now he's found something in the carpet that he's trying to chew. Oh, it's another part of his bone. Yeah. Anyway, it's very delicious, and I'm enjoying it very much. So, trying to think of my top, what's been my favorite so far. I've had Jefferson's that was really, really incredible. Did the Jim Beam Double Barrel. That was some tasty bourbon. The Makers and the Knob Creek and the Jim Beam Black and Booker's. Oh, well, of course, I'm not in the budget for Booker's, but my brother was, and the funny thing is that he had Booker's for quite some time, and I thought it was just some cheap bourbon that he'd got, and so I wouldn't touch it, and he had it in a bottle for ever. Now I'm wondering if it was the same bottle. Maybe he was constantly buying a different bottle. At any rate, it was, when I found out about it, I was like, oh man, this is really good. And finished off the last that he had. And then I found out it's not exactly cheap stuff. So anyway, my Makers is really good. I am really enjoying it. So, okay, on to the Hell, Hot Dogs, and Hand Grenade story. Again, this time I'm just going to read it so that I stay on track. So hopefully this 10 minutes of madness is worth your time. Okay, here we go. Nobody believes this when they hear it. So if you were there and can verify the story, please feel free to comment. If you were there but can't verify it, keep it to yourself, will you? I got a nice thing going here. way back when John Evans Junior High School was actually a junior high school. Evidently, it was presenting itself as a middle school, which makes its design even more cruel, but back in the day, it knew what it was, and what it was a junior high school. It had long been rumored that the school had been designed by crack-addicted circus chimps with learning disabilities and broken arms, and anyone who has had the pleasure of circling the same pod for an entire third period would agree. Evidently, they've razed John Evans to the ground now. It was such a bad design that regardless of who had to attend there, it was just horrible for all involved, and they just got rid of it. Literally, this is a school with 8 separate pods, circus tent-style pods, and they were all connected with hallways. And I will never forget my first day at John Evans Junior High. I was in 8th grade. We had moved back from Phoenix, Arizona, where it was a somewhat brisk 85 degrees in November. And we moved to Greeley, Colorado, where it was an even more brisk 35 degrees in November. So all of the students had 3 months to get used to the design, while I was just getting introduced to the horror that was that circus tent style design that I swear if I ever find that architect, oh, buddy, hide. Run and hide. What a horrible, horrible design. Literally, my second or third hour, I spent 5 minutes. 5 minutes going in the same circle. I didn't know I was going in a circle. I didn't. I went around the same pod for 5 minutes and could not find my class, freaking out because I was already late. Nobody was in the hallways. It was a horrible experience. And you could actually get lost in that school. Even after 2 years, you could get lost in that school because you would become accustomed to how they decorated the center. They had these little center decoration pieces, and they would put posters and things on it or things inside it. And then they'd get bored with that, and they'd redecorate that. When they would redecorate, you would get lost because you didn't know where you were in that school, and you had been there for 2 freaking years. Imagine that. So, yes, they raised it to the ground. And one of the rappers from House of Pain, Insane in the Membrane guys, the guy actually came to John Evans after he was famous because they had shot a horror movie there. If that doesn't tell you how bad the design of the school was, that they shot a horror film there, I can't explain it any better than that. Okay. If you've never been there, imagine 8 circus tents cemented together, each with its own spectacular freak show, and the Super Mario Brothers as principal and assistant principal running the program. The whole building's architecture was based on a dare, a kind of can you top this competition against drunken dropouts of the country's less prestigious architectural schools. The topper, some would argue, would be the cafetorium, as if there were even such a word. It was meant to be a combination of both a cafeteria and auditorium, and never really became either. It was placed right next to the school stage with access to the kitchen and plenty of tables for sitting. Now, the rumor is, I'll insert this before I get back to the story. The rumor is that they had read that the school needed a pool, a 3-foot deep pool, and had put it in the wrong place and put it in the cafeteria. And then when they realized their mistake and realized it was too late to fix it, they just said, well, we wanted to make different levels in the cafeteria. Why on God's green earth would you ever do such a thing? You wouldn't. The floor in the middle of the cafetorium was depressed about 3 feet, and more tables sat in this depression. Basically, someone read blueprints incorrectly and made a huge mistake with taxpayer dollars. But in a particularly ballsy fashion, the bureaucrats gave it the cafetorium moniker as if they intended to create such a monstrosity. Now, it's the last full day of school at John Evans on my 9th grade year, and I'm sitting with my buddy Miles, who I mentioned earlier, and our friends at a table on the outer edge of the cafeterium. All year, we had seen pickles tossed at us by the guys at the next table, but none of us ever did anything. Now we're dying to do something. We know we'll never have to see this building again. We'll never have to argue that Varsity B won all of its football games while Varsity A didn't. We'll never have to explain to the band director why it says Pritchard Eats It on his classroom door, and we'll never have to sit in the quote-unquote cafetorium. It was very obvious. Meat would be tossed this day. And what was for lunch? Corn dogs. I swear to God, corn dogs. Like the old German Model 24 steel hand grenades from World War II, with their very own handles, for crying out loud. The assistant principal had barely stepped out of the room when the first one went flying, and in seconds the entire cafetorium was engulfed in quasi-meat chaos. Mustard and ketchup was everywhere. Every now and then you'd hear someone call, "Achtung, bitches!" as they'd lob another mustard-coated projectile into the mix. It was a total disaster. If our schools would have been red and yellow, you'd have thought we had a lot of school pride. Ours weren't, and we didn't. Now this is the part I can't even get my wife to believe. Only one person got busted for the entire food fight. Right before the assistant principal came back, everyone stopped throwing beef. Everyone except for one girl, and she was hucking beef like a woman possessed. The assistant principal came around the corner, saw the ketchup, the mustard, the mess, and the last girl still fully engaged in battle, and she had to clean up the entire mess. And that is the story of hell, hot dogs, and hand grenades at John Evans Junior High School. Hope you enjoyed this episode number 13, lucky number 13, of the Backyard Bourbon Broadcast. Take care, kiddies. Say goodbye, then. Can you say goodbye?